out the subway, it was actually pouring with rain. As you may know, there has been some terrible flooding in China, Hunan province, which is north of us, northwest, northwest of Hangzhou. So here I am in the streets of Hangzhou, pouring with rain. If you come to China, you know you have to have an umbrella. It rains a lot. It's very common here, which makes it very green and pretty, but as on this particular day, it was really pouring with rain. And the first street we got to, all these little Chinese open market shops. This is very typical of China. People selling produce in these little shop areas. You can see they've got these little wind-up doors, and they open up for business, and you can buy anything you want. Basic stuff, everyday today stuff. It's just fun watching all the bustle and hustle of the stores opening and operating here. You can see, I find this so interesting, a hardware store right next to a store selling chickens. It's like really quite chaotic, but there's a kind of an order to the way they do things here. It's not something we would be used to. So I love sort of just looking through all these things here. These are all shrimps and turtles. I mean, the Chinese eat weird stuff. They eat bullfrogs as well. And actually some Western people have said to me they enjoy eating bullfrog. And I grew up in Zimbabwe, where bullfrogs were kind of like wild creatures there, that we were quite nervous of them because they were so huge. And yeah, they eat them. I don't feel comfortable about that. I did try a bullfrog once, and it wasn't nice. So yeah, this is just me winding my way up the street there. They look a little bit suspiciously at me. They're still not used to foreigners here. There are quite a lot. There are more and more foreigners coming into China all the time. But we're still a rarity. People still look at you strange. They call us Lawai, which means foreigner. Here we are looking at, I think these were fish flapping around. They're all living creatures. So, they don't have refrigeration. They're just living creatures. And I think they've got these farms where these water creatures are cultivated, and then they scoop them up and bring them into the city to sell. Chickens, take your pick. And there's the little turtles. I'm so sorry for these little guys. I mean, are they selling them as pets or as food, or both? I'm not entirely sure. 55 RMB, you can get a turtle.
My goodness, it's pouring. Well, this is delicious. Yum, yum.
I couldn't get across that road. I had to go underneath into the subway. I crossed over to the other side, and now I'm looking for the one place, but it wasn't actually the correct place. But the Chinese people there were very friendly. We used Google Translate. You can talk in it, and then they can reply, and eventually we managed to work out the place that I was actually looking for. So I set off, and this is now into the more of the city part. They're trying to find this art supply center, and the rain mercifully stopped, and there's lots and lots of people here. Apparently in Nanjing, where I was before, it's all under lockdown. I'm so glad I don't have to go through that again. We had 3 months of lockdown at the beginning of the pandemic. I had to sit in my flat for 3 months teaching the students from my flat. And in some ways it was nice, in other ways it was awful. And I don't want to go through that again. I prefer getting up and going to work, thank you very much. So they seem to be experiencing some sort of lockdown in Nanjing, but yeah, things are pretty much going along just fine. The mask alert is strong, but it's not that strict. So I'm enjoying the freedom we have here in Hangzhou.
Life is pretty cool in Nanjing. Oh, sorry, in Hangzhou. In Nanjing, apparently the streets are all empty. Nobody's walking around. It's like a ghost town. So I moved from Nanjing to Shanghai for a month, and then the breakout in Nanjing started after I had already left, and then I came to Hangzhou to start my new job. I'm going to go and find an art shop now. Not sure I know where it is, but it's just great fun wandering around the city anyway, and see what we can find. I love being out and about the city. And, we kind of live on a relatively quiet area, but the city, the best thing of the city life is not far away, and I kind of enjoy it, the hustle and the bustle. Great. This is Hangzhou, China.
Little river you pass. This is very typical. You see this everywhere. You're walking along and there's a canal and there's a little bridge that goes over it, little parks everywhere. Very pretty. And eventually I arrived at the art store. I came to another store which looked like a stationery shop, and I thought, this doesn't look like an art store. And I went inside and I spoke to the girl, and then I said, do you know where this art supply center? And she says, oh yes, it's at the back. So I'm like, at the back? And then she took me down a little passageway and into the area, and it opened up into this whole conglomeration of art material supply.
Okay, this is what I came to find. Art supplies. Let's see if I can find some nice art materials in this art supply market now.
And I eventually found the one store that had what I wanted. He had a whole lot of paint there in these tubes. And I've never seen this before. I said to him, what are these? He says they're watercolors. Now that could mean watercolor as in watercolor, or it could just mean paint that you use with water, not oil. So I haven't had a chance to try them out yet, but I bought a little set of these and some brushes and just got a basic supply going. So after I was finished there, I just took a little wander around the city. There are Starbucks everywhere in China. China is just exploding with Starbucks. Of course, they're exploding with McDonald's and Pizza Hut, and all those junk food things are also taking off in China, which is fine, I guess. Every now and again you would like to have a pizza. But I like the Chinese food. I'll talk more about that, I think, in future. Basic Chinese food is actually lovely. This is the metro. This is nice new metro they have here in Hangzhou. The one in Shanghai is also nice, but there are other parts of it that are quite old. It's quite varied. They've had a metro for a much longer time, and it varies in age. Anyway, here it's all nice and shiny and new, and you just use your phone app. You put your phone on a little at that gateway there. You hold up your Alipay with a QR code, and in you go, and it costs it's like 4 RMB or 5 RMB, so cheap. And then you get to the other end, up you go, and back into my local area, where later on in the week I met up with some teachers on a craft beer group. And this is a brand new craft beer shop which is literally 5 minutes away from where I live. It's probably going to be our Cheers restaurant, pub, go-to place for hard-working teachers. Pop into into our local brewery on the way home from school. It's quite easy to do that here. I must be careful not to spend all my salary on these things. But the craft beer is not expensive and it's delicious. And so I won't put all the teachers in yet. I still have to get to know them and tell them that I'm making these videos. And but here we go. It's called Tap Beer and Kitchen. So fabulous times. Welcome to my Hangzhou Diary, and I'll speak to you soon.